Welcome to the Honest Business Podcast. This is the show for ambitious, value-driven business owners who are actively building a business that works for them. Hi, I'm May James, and I'm here to make scaling your business easier and more rewarding than ever. Each week, we will dive into simple, sustainable strategy and pragmatic leadership discussion to support you as you take imperfect action on your entrepreneurial journey. If you want to stay ahead, exceed your growth goals, and have a purposeful, thriving business, then keep on listening. Year of Clarity, the coveted business development program that puts strategic planning at the forefront and provides direct answers and solutions to your business hurdles, is back for 2023. It is now open for enrolment with an amazing Black Friday end-of-year discount of 58% for a limited time only. Year of Clarity allows you to constantly be ahead of your competitors and ensures that the time you spend working on your business is put to good use. Join Year of Clarity today for just 12 payments of £45, or if you love a bargain, pay in full and benefit from a further £120 saving. Head straight to the show notes and click the link to secure your spot. Hello, welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast with your host, May James. That is me. If this is the first episode you're tuning into, hello, welcome. What a podcast this is. It's like a fabulous business strategy. Did you hear that? Podcast said it's going to be like, May, stop moving. Just hit the desk. I have two desks in my office. One is what I sit in all day, every day. And then I have another one, which is like my little podcast recording studio type little nook, cranny. And it has metal legs and I've just hit them. So sorry if that was unpleasant for your ears. Yeah. So, welcome if this is the first episode. If you are someone who listens all day long, and you've binged or you've listened to every single podcast from the beginning, hello, welcome, thank you for listening. I appreciate you hugely. The podcast is in 20 countries now, which is mega. Love that. Thank you for listening wherever you are in the world. But today we're going to dive into a topic called how to know which business ideas to execute and which to not. Whether that means business ideas in your business or whether that's I fancy starting a business in this thing. Should I do it? Should I not? This is something that as entrepreneurs we get all the time, right? How many ideas do we have? Most of us have ideas every single day about a new business, a new thing in the business, a new arm to the business. And it's really hard because we all get shiny object syndrome and we all want to start everything, do everything, be everything, fix all the world's problems. Like, we are innovators, we are actioners, we are people who are like, yep, let's do this. And that's difficult. It's bloody hard, right? And so when we run our own businesses, this comes up all the time, and with clients this is a regular thing, right? So you're not alone, it's not weird, but what is hard is knowing when do you execute an idea, when is it a worthwhile one, and when isn't it, and when is it a let's add it to the pile, etc, etc. You know, I think having multiple businesses is something that people really find like dreamy and they want at some point, or they hear people talking about it and they think, yeah, that's for me, I need that, I want that. They think that if you have two it makes you more credible, etc, etc. Right, I just want to say I run two businesses, one product, one service. Yes, it obviously makes me knowledgeable, yes, it's really helpful, yes, it's hugely beneficial and I really enjoy it. But I just want to say, like, you don't have to have multiple businesses to be a great businesswoman. You don't have to have multiple businesses to like be good at business. You don't have to have multiple businesses to get loads of money. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to, right? One business that is fucking amazing can be the best thing you ever do. So don't feel like you've got to have two just so that you can be like, I run my own businesses. That you don't need to do that. The dream of having multiple businesses is often better than the reality, I'm not gonna lie. I think for a lot of people they dream about having like a portfolio of businesses that's like 10 or 12 businesses, which why not? Like, dream, I love it, dream big. But I'm just saying, like, don't feel like you've got to wait, or you don't feel like you're not good because you don't have this massive portfolio of businesses. However, I want to talk you through a story for today's episode, which is different from how I run episodes normally, but stick with me, thought you might find it interesting, and it really displays well the points I want to talk about. And so I thought I'll tell you the story, and then, you know, you can take what you want from the story and maybe we'll touch on a few bits, and hopefully this episode won't be too long. So when we talk about business ideas, me personally, I have them all the time. All the friggin' time. Now, I can't say it's every single day I have a new business idea because the last few months I've been going through a lot of busyness with things outside of business, with family and personal life and things, which has meant that my brain, my lovely brain that serves me very, very well and is very clever, but sometimes is very sore and hurt from using it so much and trying to find solutions to things that I don't have the solution for, that are not in business, means that it can't really think beyond the day-to-day. However, when that is not the case, my little brain comes up with all sorts of ideas all of the time, and it is like ping, 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 let's do this, let's do that, let's make this happen, like let's take over the world by this thing. And I have a list, like a running list of businesses that one day I want to start, I want to do, I want to excel at, I can't wait to make happen, I can't wait to build the team, I can't wait to I get so friggin' excited, like so excited. You can probably hear in my voice, like it literally brings me so much life and excitement because I bloody love entrepreneurship. I love building businesses. I love creating something in the world and helping people, and just, it literally makes me want to cry. It makes me get excited. It makes me want to scream. I just fucking love it. Anywho, that does mean that I have to get really, really strict with myself on learning this process. So what I have learned is what I'm sharing with you today, is that going through the emotions of knowing which business idea to execute, I have to go through all the fucking time. And it has made me be a much better business owner. It's made me be a much better advisor, a much better consultant, a much better coach. It's really, really helped me because it forces me to get really tuned into what do I want? What is the goal? Where are we going? What is the impact we are trying to create in the world? So let's go back to the summer of 2022. This summer. It was July and I was on holiday with my lovely family in Spain. And it was a holiday that we've never ever done before. It was a blended family moment, which was very lovely. For those of you who don't know, I've had quite the year and quite the last year. My mother tragically, suddenly, awfully, horrifically died in September of 2021. And that leaves me with a very interesting family setup. Well, we're not going to go into that, but whatever, right? Basically, my mum is no longer here. So this year on holiday, we very kindly were invited to go on holiday with my partner's family. And also my sister came with me. So we had a whole James and other surname clan together, which was really fun. It was very exciting. No one knew how it was going to go. No one knew if it was going to be a disaster, whether it was really good. My boyfriend has not been on holiday with his family abroad for 10 years or something. So it was quite the revelation for everyone, for them in themselves to go on holiday together, and I'd never been away with them abroad, and then obviously my sister had never been, so it was a whole it was an interesting situation, and no one kind of knew how it was going to go. Very chill, very relaxed. And then it was an absolute success. It was a roaring success. It was fabulous. It was great. We had a really great time. I think it went better than anyone actually expected it was going to go, which is always nice, right? You never know with these things. But in that holiday, there was a fascinating thing happened. It's not that fascinating. It happens pretty much every holiday we go on in terms of me. But obviously, because the family were there, it was quite interesting. And it played out in real time. And it was also interesting because 2 members of my team are my family, and they were both there with me on the holiday. So please stick with me because this story makes a lot of sense, okay? So that was funny in itself because I get quite agitated and bored when I've been on holiday. So I go on holiday, I completely switch off, I'm like, no work, whatever. But because I'm an entrepreneur, it never really stops. You just think of things, you have ideas, you have things you want to do. It is what it is. It gives me brain space, that brain space I was talking before about, when maybe you don't have the space in your day-to-day life to do that. When I go on holiday, I obviously do. So that's really beautiful and nice. So we were away on our summer holiday, and it was probably about 3 days in of a 7-day trip. And I was lay there, and I was like, And then I randomly, the idea came to me, and it had already come to me 2 months prior, but I was pushing out of my head, and then it came to me while I was on this holiday. Now, this is a whole business idea. This isn't an idea to implement into an existing business. This is a whole new business idea. This business will one day come to fruition. I know it will, because this has also been on a repeat play for the last 2 years. 2 years or 3 years? 3 years. And it just never has happened. And every single year I hum and haw whether we're going to do it, and I don't do it. But this year was the year that I was like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna be now, we're gonna do it. This was only while I was like on a sun lounger on holiday, right? So I'm lay there and I've got my sister next to me who works with me. I've also got my mother-in-law who also works with me on one side. Then I've also had my sister-in-law who doesn't work with me but is like a cool sounding board, and she knows what goes on in the businesses, and she does actually help me from time to time if I need like an additional pair of hands for something. She's great. So she's there. And then also my partner's there as well, who he again doesn't work in the business but is very much involved in terms of, you know, partners are when you're in business, he kind of knows what's going on and stuff. So with all silence, I randomly raised this thing and I'm like, right, I think I want to do this. And they're like, okay, random. Whilst bearing in mind this business is related to Christmas and Christmas time and festivities and things. And bearing in mind we're in like 30-degree heat and it was so hot. It was the kind of heat where people are complaining that it's so hot because it's just like, it's really, really hot. So everyone's later like, May, really, like, it's Christmas, we're now in July, we're sat here like talking about Christmas, do we need to? Anyway, by the way, can I just say, I didn't subject everyone to this conversation. I did say, I've got this business idea, does anyone want to hear about it? And everyone was like, yeah or no or whatever. Like, no one, I'm not forcing anyone to talk about business. And when I say that my team's with me, like, they're obviously not working on holiday. This was a total like, do you want to chat? But if anyone's in business with family, you know what it's like. Like, you talk about business all the time. It's not that you like purposely do it, it's just how it is. It's just the way it is. So anyway, everyone's like, yeah, come on then, because the conversation was kind of silent. It's like, right, let's go. So here's May chatting about another idea. Now, they all actually know about, or two of them, I think most people actually knew about the idea in the sense of knew that it's been on the cards for ages and ages, in the sense of like, it comes around every year and I'm like, we should really do this, I really want to do it. And then it's like, okay, are you going to do it or you're not? And it inevitably never happens. But this summer, it just felt different because we were now talking about it and it was July. I was like, now, for anyone that doesn't know, if you're going to start a Christmas business, to be fair, July's too late. Like, you need to, depending on what it is that you're going to do, but for most things, like, July's too late, press-wise and other things-wise, to kind of wait until that point. You need to be, like, behind that. But that didn't bother me because I was like, well, actually, it might be that we started now for, 2023 Christmas, whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. Or we do, like, a real soft launch and then the main launch is for the year after. So I'm like, right, okay, whatever. So we're like sat there. Anyway, we all go in, or most of us go in the sea because it's so hot and we're all like, red hot. So we're just like chilling in the sea and we're like chatting about this idea and everyone's like, yeah, this sounds good. And then I don't think my partner's here at this point, but there's four of us ladies are all kind of chilling. And they're like, yeah, and we're discussing ideas and someone's asking questions and I'm like, yeah, this. And then there's certain things I haven't completely worked out in my head. So I'm like, don't know, like, not sure. And we're just chatting, right? We're just chatting backwards and forwards, kind of mapping this out, mapping out a business plan, mapping out what's this all going to look like. So kind of just got this whole business plan created just off us like chilling in the sea and just chilling and relaxing and having fun. And this is nice, right? Because it just it's very natural. And it's just exciting and fun. And the others were quite happy to get involved because it was quite a creative business. So it was like coming up with fun ideas and stuff. So anyway, I'm like, right. So we finished the conversation and someone was like, so what are you going to do? Like, are you going to go ahead or not? And I said, I haven't made a decision. Like, I'll have a think about it. So it's like, okay, right. So we're on holiday. So we do other things and whatever. And the next few days go by and we're still on holiday and I'm like thinking about it and things map out in my head. And I, have this whole thing. At this point, nothing's on paper. To be fair, because this business idea has already nearly been actioned before, there is actually some stuff on paper somewhere, but obviously I didn't have it with me. It's not something I was like, this was from years ago anyway. So I was like, right. So we're just chilling, but remember, again, it's like 30 degrees, we're in the middle of Spain, it's boiling hot. The last thing you want to be thinking about is Christmas in July. It's like, okay, whatever, mate. And I did a bit of researching and, I'm on my phone and I'm Googling and I'm looking at things and, working bits and pieces out, looking at profit margins and costings and this thing and that thing. And then it gets to a point where it was like, I think this is now like day 6 of the holiday. So obviously day 6 of the holiday, we're like going to be going home soon and kind of making a decision of like, right, what are we doing? Because obviously if I'm going to action this, it's like, we're going to have to land, get off that plane and start actioning straight away and like go hell for leather at it. And I'm going to need a team or people to support me, or how's that going to work and what's that going to look like? So it was a point where reaching, you're like, right, you've got to make a decision, which I essentially gave myself 2 days, which is the tip that I'm going to come on to explaining the tips for. But I gave myself 2 days to be like, right, what are we doing? So then on the 6th day of the holiday, I'm like, okay, what are we doing? And then in that moment, I made a decision and I was like, yeah, maybe we're not doing this. And I made a decision and I was like, okay. And I'm sad and I'm disappointed and I'm a bit like, because I really want to do it. But I was like, no, we're not doing it. And I made a decision, and then I make a decision and someone brought it up. I didn't verbally make this decision and we didn't announce it to anyone because it's just a casual conversation, right, that people are saying. And it came up through the other days of like, oh, I've thought of this. Or someone was like, oh, I've thought of this. What about if you do this? And then someone said, I think it was my sister, she was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go with it? Like, should we do it? And I said, no, I've decided I'm not going to do it. And she's like, okay, right. And I make a decision, and that's the decision. And so I get on the plane home the next day, and it's like, it doesn't really cross my mind. Now, it does cross my mind in weeks and months to come. It cropped up in end of August, it cropped up in October, and then a couple of times in October, actually, it was like, oh, I wish we were doing this, or I really would love to do this. And I was like, yeah, and we're not. And that was that, right? And that idea has been popped away, and it's still in my brain, and it still comes and sees me every week or so, and it's not into fruition. And one day it will be, and I'm very excited for that day and very kind of pumped for it. And yeah, the day that comes, it'll be super exciting, and I can't wait to tell you about it, but that's not going to be for this year. And that is my little story, which if you're still listening to this, I have no clue whether that's interesting or not, so sorry if it wasn't, but if it is, then fine. I want to now break down some points about that story and kind of give you the tips from that and what I want you to take away from it. So, the biggest tip I can give you is I gave myself 2 days. This is a thing I have as like a standard rule in my head of how this works. I let myself dream, I let myself think, I let myself explore whatever I want to explore. That's important. It's part of who I am. It's part of my entrepreneurial nature. It's part of me being amazing at what I do. So I have to let that happen. So I let it happen. I let it run away with me. I let it go with whatever's happening. But then I give myself a time frame at some point and say, hey, this has to be a decision made. The reason that is because I run multiple businesses already. I'm a busy woman. I do not have endless time to just be like, oh, what's going to happen with this and what's going to happen with that. I also refuse to be one of these people who just talk loads of shit and don't do anything. So it's like, right, mate, what are you doing? So I gave myself 2 days, and 2 days is like my rule. That's what I talk to people. If you have an idea that's really itching on you, like you're going to have ideas that come in your head and then you can let them go and they'll be fine and they don't bother you again, or you can write them down and that's it, it's done. Some ideas will literally linger in your head for ages, and that's when you start to think, right, I need to action on this. So what I do with those ideas is I give myself 2 days and be like, hey, chill out, what's happening? Like, what's the decision? I then have to make a decision on what we are doing, and I stick to it. And in that 2 days, you make a decision. Now, the one thing you need to remember with this whole thing is every idea can always be resurrected. Every single idea. Every single idea you have for the rest of your life can be resurrected at some point. So it's not that you're wasting things away. It's not that you're throwing them away. It's that it can come back. And so I have a running list, and you should keep a running list, and you just keep a list of all the ideas. And you have a list of ideas that are related to your business now that you want to implement or add on or change. And then you also have, like, if you do like me, have random business ideas that you want to do, then you have a separate list and a separate situation for that. And that's really important because sometimes your creativity and your idea generation will not be there for whatever reason, illness or trauma or, whatever, grief, whatever. Your idea generation might get stung a bit and it won't work as well as it used to. But if you have that list of previous ideas, it will really help you feel like, yeah, I do actually have something and I do know what the next steps are for me. In terms of how do you make a decision of knowing which do you go with and which don't you? Because you might now be thinking in this episode, well, mate, why did you decide not to? I'm not going to go into the reasons because that would be like a whole other podcast episode in itself. But basically what I will say to you is just it's not the right time, and that what I'm about to tell you is the reason why I chose not to, essentially because it doesn't align with the goals for the other businesses that I run and for what I need to do to really look after myself and be the best thing for me personally, is the short answer. So when you are deciding whether or not you should do an idea or not, you need to look at the long-term potential and the long-term probability. Those are two different things. Long-term potential, I need you to look at, right, does this make sense? What is the potential long-term? Not what is the potential the next month, not what is the potential for me to feel great for the next 4 months, but then not afterwards. Get really clear on what is the long-term potential. Because the reason I say this is because most people's business ideas are, it's hard to like put a word on this, but like are quite fleeting ones, which what I mean by that is like, yes, you could create a fully functioning business off it, but it would be an absolute pain in the arse to keep going consistently all the time for the next 10 years. So you really need to look at like, what do you want the business to be and why, and being really objective with that, and then set out what the objectives are for you even doing this. Because a lot of people, it's quite impulsive ideas that would be great business ideas, but they're not like mega businesses, which is fine because not everything needs to be a mega business. But what I mean by that is it depends where you are on your entrepreneurial journey. If you're listening to this and you've exited 3 businesses and you've got 20 million in the bank and actually business for you is about having fun and it's about expression, cool. The long-term potential maybe doesn't matter for you. But that's not probably the majority of people listening to this. You listening to this are probably actively on a journey growing a business at the moment. Maybe that's 1, maybe that's 2, maybe that's 3 businesses. You adding another business into the mix could be the worst thing you do. And it could be the most disruptive thing you do. Because often people are searching for an endorphin hit, a dopamine hit, and a like validation hit. And the really decent way to do that is to start a new business. It's so bloody exciting. It's so fun, right? But then 6 months after that, 12 months after that, 4 months after that, 24 months after that, it can be a bloomin' slog and a bloody miserable place to be. Now, some people have this habit of just starting new businesses left, right and centre because they never want to reach the point of actual growth and stabilisation and do the hard bit of business growth and scaling. So they just never do, and they just start new businesses left, right and centre, and there's always something new going on. I'm not here to say that you're a bad person for that. You're not. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't do that, because if you want to do that, then fine, do it. Like, you know what I mean? Business is business. You choose whatever the hell you want to do. But what I'm saying is do not become what I call like a business, like an eater, basically, where you just like churn out businesses as if it's like some sort of like McDonald's, where you're just like constantly next thing, and then you don't actually ever really achieve anything like massive because you're just always focusing on new things, new ideas. So you really need to understand what is the potential long term, what is the probability of it happening. So then this is the next thing. So maybe you do have a business that's a real like decent proposition that makes sense long term, makes sense financially long term. But then I need to find out what is the probability of that actually happening. Because if you're already running other things or one business, you're not going to have the same amount of time for someone who doesn't. So get really clear on like, what is the probability of this actually working? Not what is the cash flow forecast that you've created in your head. I'm talking what is the actual probability of this working out, and to what extent of it working out. Now, coming back to this idea of how do you work out, how do you work out whether you should go ahead with the idea or not? The other thing you need to do is go back to your yearly goals and go back to your 5-year outcome plan and really, really understand what are you aiming for? What are you searching for? What are your personal goals? Like, is your personal goal that you need to make, like, you want to get like 300 grand in cash in your bank? Or is it that, you want to spend 3 days a week working and have 4 days off? Because whatever that is, then that needs to match up with what output you're going to do. Actually, if, you want 300 grand cash in your bank, and then this business idea really helps you make a lot of money in a short space of time, and it's not a 20-year business idea, but it will help you net cash and actually get you to take cash home and it's highly profitable, then maybe the answer is yes, you should do the business. But you're only going to know that if you can go back to your yearly goals, go back to your 5-year kind of vision and be like, what does that mean? And what does that mean for me, like, as a whole going forward? The other thing you need to do is map out what your next steps are if you're going to go ahead with the business idea, and then work out, does that make sense? Because often it's not until people actually start mapping out like this thing, that's going to happen, this is going to happen, that they then realise, oh, this isn't for me right now, or this is a project for 6 months' time, or this is a project for 10 years' time. Like, you've got to really look at, like, what are the next steps and what does make sense for your life. This isn't just about business, it's about you and your life and what you need. The other thing I need you to think about is communicating effectively with the other people involved. So if you already have a team, and this is a business idea for an internal business that you already have, you need to really communicate that well, and you need to be clear on why you're doing it. And you also need to communicate what the implications are for the people involved. People, when you announce change, are immediately going to think, what does that mean for them? Even in your head, you're not even thinking about that. They are. So you need to be really clear and say, like, it's not going to change anything. Or actually, it's going to mean your role's going to change into this. Or for 6 months, I need you to do this. Like, get really clear on what does that mean for people and communicate effectively. The other thing I urge you is to be strategic. The story I shared with you at the beginning is fully steeped in being strategic. That's why I didn't go ahead with it. Because from a strategic perspective, it doesn't make sense and it isn't going to work. So energetically, I have to stay true to me and my values and say, no, we're not doing it. Be strategic. Do not just feel into this, because feeling into this is where people then make decisions and spend money on stuff that they really didn't need to or shouldn't have. Obviously, you need to keep an ideas bank, which I have mentioned throughout this episode, of like really think about what is all of these ideas, because they will come in handy at some point. So keep an idea bank. There's two kind of things that I want to leave you on, just as a point of principle and a point of reflection, and also using my knowledge of me, but also my knowledge of other people and clients and business in general, and what I know to be true and what works and what doesn't. So one thing I want to leave you with is the fact of this. I do see people take action from these ideas that we've just discussed, from these ideas that come into our heads all the time as entrepreneurs. And what happens is I see people get very little back from them, because the idea of it's fun, the thought of it's fun, the thought of creating a brand is fun, the thought of coming up with some new messaging, the thought of finding new customers, like that's all really fun. It's so exciting to buy the stuff and do the thing and start this thing. Really fun. But then what I do see is people getting absolutely exhausted from it. And the business and the main thing that they were doing gets reduced in the attention it gets. And then overall, people seem to get very little out of it. Now, I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm not saying that to say everybody's that, because they're not. But I'm just saying that you have to understand that you are one human being who has a certain amount of resources and a certain amount of time available to them. You are not superhuman, and everyone has 24 hours in a day. God, I sound like Kim Kardashian, don't I? Don't shoot me. But when I mean the complete opposite of what she's saying. I'm basically saying, like, you don't have a lot of time. 24 hours is not a lot of time. You need to live, you need to work, you need to enjoy your life as well. So be really open with yourself of like, actually, is this going to give me back what I'm about to have to put into it? Because it's a bloody hard thing to do, to go and like start a whole thing. And I think in our heads, we forget that, especially if you are quite far on in business, you'll forget how hard it was to get the thing off the ground. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can become, it's like, I don't know, I'm not a mother, but I imagine it's a bit like child labour, where you just like forget the absolute chaos of what went into it and how horrific it was. And then you're like, yeah, let's do it again. And then you get there and you get halfway into it and you think, God, why did I do this? I shouldn't have done this. And that's really similar with business. So, you know, think about all that energy and action you're going to put into this new business. If you just put it into the thing you're doing now, how much of a different situation would you be in? Like, how much more can you get from that existing business? What can you leverage? Because a lot of people, if you get very little back from all this action you're putting in, it's really demoralizing. And then what happens is, I've seen this time and time again, is then the business that's the main income builder also suffers and also takes a downwards turn. And then you as an entrepreneur feel really beat up and broken and frustrated and a bit down. And that impacts everything you're involved with. So this isn't just about you taking an idea and then turning it into something. It's about you deciding what makes sense for you as an individual right now, today, as we speak today. And that's so key. So don't just, action something and then feel like annoyed when you get very little back, because your business doesn't owe you anything. Your new business idea doesn't owe you anything. It never will. So, you have to approach it being really realistic in what it's going to give you and what it isn't. The other thing that I have touched on, but I want to reiterate, is that having multiple businesses doesn't equal more money, and it doesn't mean that you'll take home more money, but what it does mean is that you will have higher expenses. And I think this is something people do not think about at all. Your accountant bill will be higher. It'll be double for some of you. It might be triple, the more you're adding on business-wise and business identity-wise, the more expensive it's going to get. So not only might you not make much money from whatever it is you're starting for a long period of time, you've also got to be understanding and in a position to be able to support that. And I just mentioned that again, not to be like a negative person or a Debbie Downer, but just to say this is shit's real, right? This isn't all sunshine and roses. This is hard. And people really struggle with understanding that actually what they maybe need is not a new business or not an additional business. They just need to focus on the business they have and making that really, really good and scaling it to a point where they then can have the time freedom or have the finances in place to make the other stuff work. The final thing I would like to say on deciding whether or not, to execute an idea is just really thinking proactively with yourself about what do you want. Sometimes when we have lots of ideas like this, not always at all, but sometimes it can be because we really have fell out of love with our existing business, and that's okay. You're allowed to fall out of love with your business. But the solution is not always starting another business. The solution is much more deep than that often. And it often comes about that you need to restructure your business or you need to restructure your business model. And if that is you, come and speak to me because I can really help you. That is what I help people do. I can help take what you have right now, transform it into something that is energetically really good for you and that feels exciting and feels expansive and feels fun again, but doesn't mean you have to go and start a whole new business. On the other hand, if you are someone who does want to start a whole new business and actually you have this mega idea and you want to get it really right from the start, come and speak to me also. Because one thing I have seen is that the people who do succeed when you implement multiple businesses and you add businesses into the mix is those people who really plan, who take the time to get really solid strategy and then make sure they're utilising their time really well. Because whichever you go for, you're going to be time poor, yeah? Most people. So the time you do spend on working on this additional business idea needs to be really focused. And the best and easiest and quickest way to do that is to have a solid strategy. So if you're serious about this other business that you're starting, then come and speak to me and let's work together on creating you a 12-month growth plan, launch, pre-launch, whatever situation you're at, and actually making sure that one, you make this work, two, you generate really good revenue, three, you have a plan for taking the revenue out, and four, that you manage to blend the two businesses together. And that's what I really help people do, whether that's blending 2 businesses, 3 businesses, 4 businesses. I can help you blend them together so that everything makes sense, everything's making money, everything's making profit, and you benefit in the long run, and you take more money home and you have more time. Because that's ultimately what we're doing this for. So think about, okay, do I need to invest in that as a service if I am going to go for this? And I'd really recommend you do, because you haven't got the time, if you're already doing something else, to mess around and play around, because it needs to work. And I think that's really, really important. That is all for today's podcast episode. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that it's kind of made you think about a few things. I'll let you know when the business that was being talked about on the beach comes to fruition, whether that's in 2023 or 2024 or 2030 or 2035, who knows. I'm sure at some point it will. And I'd love to hear your own thoughts around this. What are your own ideas that you have brewing? Do you have any? Are you like me and you feel like you constantly have them? I'd love to know. Drop me a DM over on Instagram. It's @may.james_. I'll catch you next week. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Honest Business Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you are subscribed. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others and leave a rating and review. To catch up with all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram @may.james_, where I share the raw, uncut, behind the scenes reality of what running multiple businesses every day truly looks like. As always, links and any resources that were mentioned in the episode will be in the show notes below. That's all for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next time.